Hello and welcome back to Two Tall Guys Talking Sales. We're your hosts. I'm Kevin.
And I'm Sean.
We're glad you're here. In this podcast, we talk about sales issues, big and small, affecting B2B sales organizations. We'll break one issue down, dig into it, and try to add value so that when you go back into your sales efforts, you've got something, a real situation to base your next decision on as you make revenue growth decisions. Sean, let's get started.
Yeah, let's do that. And I think today we decided we were going to talk about this really favorite topic of mine. Are your compensation plans ready to deploy before January 1st? So we're in the middle of November right now as we talk. And it's time to start thinking about, are you ready for January 1st? Because one of my pet peeves, and Kevin, open to your comments on this as well, obviously, but one of my pet peeves is salespeople not getting their plans until February or March or, God forbid, May, right? And we've had that. At least I've had that in my career. I don't know if you've had that. Yeah. So, and salespeople are kind of like, is this still going to count? Is this still going to hurt me? All that other stuff. Like, are you going to add up the first 4 months of my revenue and then give me my quota? All of those bad thoughts start to happen. So I'm a big believer in January 1. We are ready to go. We've already delivered the comp plan before that. We've talked about it. We've talked about the problems. We've talked about what the goals are of the company by January 1. Kevin,
Absolutely.
Thoughts?
Absolutely. And for those CEOs listening out there, or COOs or CFOs wondering, well, why does it matter so much? I want to put a real fine point on that. And it matters so much because it decreases trust in the sales organization. And when you're trying to build a healthy sales culture, trust is a very, very heavy currency to bear. So build trust. If you want to build trust and open communication, if you want to prevent things like sandbagging, right? You never want to push a deal out further that you don't have to. But on the altar of trust, on the altar of growth, you really want to contribute trust. So comp plan is ready for January 1st launch. We talk about forecasts. We talk about strategic plans. So I like to put some backstops and guide rails on this conversation. The guide rails being, we need to have a plan. Right? Your salespeople need to have a plan. You need to have a plan and need to be aligned. So when you're thinking about comp plans, making sure your forecasts are aligned are equally as important at this time. So if you've not started that process, please go ahead and start in your business. Start the forecasting process now.
I agree. In fact, you're probably late. Like, hurry up and get this going because you're probably late. So when I like to work backwards when I'm working on a deadline, right? So if my deadline is January 1st, let's be honest, last 2 weeks of the year, that's Christmas. There's going to be lots of stuff getting in the way. Plus, there's going to be some deals that the reps have to bring in anyway, right? So we shouldn't be kind of doing much before that. So that means that we probably want to deliver that comp plan a week or two before Christmas. That way we've had that discussion. It's not getting in the way of Christmas holidays. It's not getting in the way of any vacation time that the salespeople and the sales manager and the CEO might be having over the holidays. And it's not getting away in this last deal that we're trying to get closed to get it in for the end of the year. So my goal typically is, the rough estimate is December 1st, I hand my salespeople the comp plan for next year. Maybe it's December 5th, right? But I don't want it to be December 21st. I definitely don't want it to be January 5th.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I like to work backwards, which means you need to start working on it now. It's middle of November right now. You've got a couple weeks to go. You can get it done, but it's got to be a high priority, high urgent thing that you're working on right now.
Completely agree. So let's talk about, we got a few minutes here. We're going to try and keep this one to 15 minutes because, we as sales guys, we tend to run long, but we're working really hard behind the scenes to hold each other accountable to stay on track here. So let's first talk about what makes a good compensation plan, right? So you've got a time-bound, aligned to company goals, right? And then you've got strategic outcomes for the company that are aligned to bonuses, incentives, or just the regular comp plan. So the one question I always get when I'm talking to a CEO about a compensation plan is, well, I'm not really changing anything next year. Why should I reissue a new comp plan? And my number one answer is because you need to create a culture of expectation. Salespeople need to know that plan's going to arrive every year, because there's going to be a time, like we've all experienced COVID now, where if you turn on the television, you're hearing anything about recessions, post-election hangovers, additional market upticks or interest rate upticks. You're hearing all these things and have been for a number of months now. That means that there's winds of change always. So you as a leader need to set the tone for expecting either an update or a confirmation that nothing is changing. Every year, you need to have that compensation plan reissued and signed off on. That provides consistency and security for all of your salespeople. They know that, hey, December 1st through 5th, I'm going to receive next year's comp plan, and I'm going to sign off on it because we're all aligned to the same goals. Now, Sean, why don't you take the side of, well, what if they are changing? Why should we have a comp plan change?
Well, definitely if you are changing, and this is that thing of trust that Kevin just talked about. The whole idea that I need to communicate the why behind the change. So you can't just say, this is the way it is, guys. Go out there and do what you're told to do. You can, but this is not the market to do that. You might have been able to get away with that 10 years ago or 20 years ago, but in this market, you need to really get your salespeople to trust you, and you need to trust them. And so you need to give them time to receive that comp plan, understand the comp plan, have concerns about the comp plan, address those concerns, and have that whole conversation. So when you're saying, this year, guys, we're gonna have a increased quota on this type of product if you have several products in your product line, or maybe we're gonna have a bonus or a spiff or something special to talk about new logos versus growing accounts, or maybe it's the other way around. Maybe we're not penetrating our accounts enough, so we're going to have more emphasis on growing existing accounts so that we're penetrating those accounts better. Whatever those focus points are that's going to be in your comp plan that are driven from your company goals, you have to give that time for the salesperson to digest it, especially the more changes you make. If you make a little bit of change or a lot of change, you need to give them time to digest it. And you need to give them time to compare it to last year. That just fact of life. They're going to do it anyway, so just give them time to figure that out and make that happen.
Absolutely. Even if the change is in the frequency of incentive payments, you need to help them understand if you're going from monthly to quarterly, or quarterly to monthly, or monthly to weekly, or whatever the frequency of payment. If there's a change, they need to understand why and how that affects them, how that affects their personal cash flows. Because what you want to do is build that healthy sales culture, and that currency of trust is part of how you do that. So let's talk about different industries, Sean. You and I work in a lot of industries. Some are emerging industries or emerging companies in an industry, and why it's important to change compensation models over time as a business, the life cycle of a business evolves. We can go back and forth with software, distribution, professional services, manufacturing. Why don't you lean into that a little bit?
Yeah. So first of all, your compensation plan, and hopefully you're already working on this, it has to be competitive with your industry, right? So software gets paid differently than manufacturing does, or whatever. And there may be specific things that are unique about your comp plan that are about, gee, I can't pay you until I get paid kind of issues because of cash flow issues, right? So that's fine. And you may need to change those this next year, because maybe you're worried about, the inflation rates, or maybe your debt load is becoming higher than what you want. And so you have those kind of issues. So you may be changing your compensation plan for that. If you're working with Kevin and I, or if you've got a really good sales manager, you're growing. That's what we want, right? We want a growing company. So your comp plan is going to change because you are growing. So if you're growing in the manufacturing space, maybe that's a slower growth than if you're growing in the software space, where the growth is anticipated to be faster. Or even in professional services, you may not be growing as much because you can't get people. So there might be issues there. But if you're growing, that means your quotas are going up, or you've got more salespeople. So maybe the quota per salesperson is going down, and that's okay. So we need to think about those issues and make sure that we're communicating, why did the commission plan change? Why are we paying less per whatever or more per whatever, based on what's going on in our market, what's going on in our industry, and what's going on in our cash flow.
Fair. And I like to also put the lens in front of somebody for them to look through that says, hey, what are we incentivizing this year? What are our strategic plans? So if you're working with us on a sales strategy, if you're working with a business coach and you're talking about strategic initiatives, new market entry, the way you pay people to help you achieve those goals matters. So whether you're talking about emerging businesses or a new line of business and you're saying, hey, let's go get new logos, right? New logos are very, very valuable. Or maybe you're in a mature business where you're saying, hey, market share is intensely valuable. So renewals, displacement, strategic account focus becomes very, very much the focus for those kind of compensation plans. So kind of hitting the highlights here, we've talked about what makes up a good plan, timing for a good plan, specific markets and specific market focuses or timing in the life cycle of a business. All these are strategic focuses. So if you've got these kinds of questions in your business, Sean and I can be a resource for you to solve for that and to help get more out of your existing sales team. Sean?
Exactly. And so we're not going to give you all the hints on how to figure out what your compensation plan should, what your quota should be, and quota per rep. We're not going to give you all that in a 15-minute episode. We've done a little bit of talking. We have another series that we do called the CEO Workshops. We've done a little bit of talking about the subject in those sessions, but we also were available to come in and actually give you some insight into your business and give you some guidance. But I want to reemphasize our starting point, our starting premise for this episode, and that is, if you want your salespeople to trust you and to stay with you and to be successful with you, then you need to treat them like a professional. And everybody else in your company, they know what their pay plan is. They know how they're going to get paid on January 15th or January 30th or February 15th. They know what that check's going to look like. Your salespeople need to know what that check's going to look like as well, right? So I'm not going to tell you you should pay before the order, you should pay before you get paid. I'm not saying any of that. You work out all that stuff. We'll help you if you need to. But you need to explain it to your salespeople by approximately the first week in December so they can digest it. It doesn't affect them too much. And they are ready to go, ready to be successful, ready to sell for you on January 1st. Not, gee, I don't know if I want to bring in that order. Maybe I can slow it down a little bit until I get my comp plan. And I've said this before on this broadcast as well as other places. A salesperson can't always bring an order in faster than what the customer wants, because the customer is going to buy when the customer wants to buy. But the salesperson can always slow down a deal, and you don't want that. So get it done so they're ready to go on January 1st, so they can bring in that first order on January 3rd.
Fantastic. Sean, that's a great overview, and thank you. And to the message of consistency and trust, you can trust that we're still under 15 minutes, and we'll be back again next Tuesday at 4:30 with the next episode of Two Tall Guys Talking Sales. Thanks for your time and happy selling.